So thank you. Hello. I'm just going to make the introduction while Reza's setting up the slides. I would like to obviously talk a bit more about how I've come to campaign against gender segregation, but in the interest of time, I'll cut that short and start right away with the guidance on gender segregation that Universities UK, which is the representative bodies of all public universities in the UK, has issued. And these guidelines said, and that has often been misreported in the press, these guidelines talked about how an external speaker coming to a university should be allowed to impose, and specifically using that word, gender segregation on the audience that they are speaking to as their right to free expression. So probably that won't make a lot of sense to me. It didn't make a lot of sense to me. So what I did, once we had once this guidelines came out, I contacted Mariam and a couple of other activists, and together we started this great campaign. Can you go one? One more. Yes, please. Exactly. So we had, just to recap quickly, we had a 10,000 strong petition against the gender segregation guidelines of the UK, University of UK. We had a rally at the offices with great speakers like Pragna, like Gita, like Kate Smith-Waite, who's also here today, Mariam, obviously. We had also Yasmin Adaba-Brown. Yasmin was also supporting Peter, sent an address. We wrote a letter to Farida Shahid, the UN Special Rapporteur on Cultural Rights. Right about a Cambridge student had a legal notice sent to Universities UK saying that if they did rescind their guidelines and amend them in a way that would outlaw gender segregation, that they would face legal action. We got great support from various, from all across the party political spectrum, from Labour, the SNP, from Tories, and including the Prime Minister. So I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of David Cameron. I must say, in this very instance, he got it right. He probably didn't really get it right for the right reasons. But anyway, I think most campaigners would be happy if they had the support from the Prime Minister. So University UK withdrew their guidance, and the Equality and Human Rights Commission announced that they were going to issue a new guidance. So the new guidance said that gender segregation is not permitted, very clearly subject to certain very specific exceptions, and that universities have a duty to publish and keep up to date a code of practice which addresses the conduct of events in its premises. And they are legally obliged to take any available and alternative reasonable practical steps to avoid or prevent gender segregation from happening. And if ever it has happened, they are legally urged to ensure that it did not recur in the future. So what I did, obviously, I'm a bit, mistrusting from university through my own personal experience from universities. Those who know what I've been doing would probably know why I say that. And I sent a Freedom of Information request to all universities in the UK that are member of Universities UK, that's all public universities. And this requested information on how universities are assessing whether certain events or meetings are at risk of gender segregation. Obviously, there needs to be some kind of assessment or some kind of understanding whether there might or may not be gender segregation at an event, how they are monitoring whether certain kinds of events are actually being gender segregated, and how they are, that is far too little time. So anyway, and how they prevent gender segregation from happening. So, this is a sample, 134 universities, 113 replied, 19 did not reply. I sent a lot of follow-up emails, and what I'm going to present now is new evidence and data that I have not presented yet on how the universities responded. So I developed a coding scheme according to whether universities had no provisions at all, had general provisions not specific to gender segregation, had general but not very specific provisions on gender segregation, had specific provisions on gender segregation, or had specific provisions that were explicitly part of the rules of the code of practice of the university. So, safeguards against gender segregation in general. We have 34 universities who have none whatsoever, 40 who have general ones, not specific to gender segregation, and 5 who reach the best category of 4, so to speak. So a total gives that from 0 well, those who coded 0 to 1 have insufficient safeguards. That is 65% of universities in the UK, and this 11% here, the F, is the universities that are still developing these safeguards. Risk assessment is something that is being done properly by about, not properly, more or less properly by 20% of universities in the UK, 8% are still developing it, and 72% have no risk assessment whatsoever or just general ones. Same picture for monitoring events that are risk of gender segregation. 73% of universities do not do that at all, or do not do that in specific to gender segregation. 17% have some kind of provisions, 10% are still developing. And the worst numbers are for the prevention of gender segregation. That's 80% to have no measures in place whatsoever to prevent gender segregation from happening. 10% do, 10% are still developing. If we use this coding scheme that I used, 4 is the best possible value that's here. As you can see, in general kind of provisions, we have quite a big gap here. So this would be 3 would be, in my opinion, acceptable level. 2 would be the absolute necessary minimum to ensure that universities are preventing gender segregation from happening and are safeguarding students, and this is where we are right now. So it's an extremely poor performance, despite the huge public attention that our campaign created. So I won't probably go into too much detail here, but these are the universities where we have confirmed and verified cases of gender segregation, and as you can see here, they're hardly faring better on average. They're faring a bit better, but still, even those who have proven cases, like for example the University of Glasgow, they have no safeguards, no provisions whatsoever. And so in terms of the second part of the gender segregation, the Freedom of Information requests are sent, asked also for other events, and I found again that there were other non-publicized events at the London School of Economics, Institute of Education, Bradford, Liverpool, Leicester, and those were done by our personal friends from the Islamic Education and Research Academy called IERA. Probably most of you will be familiar with them. Unsurprisingly, Islamic student and theology societies, but also by Orthodox Jewish societies or events or celebrations, and also Christian student societies. So it's not quite accurate to say this is only a problem that is related to Islamic student societies. Just to wrap up very quickly, and I'm very aware of time, I think when we know, for example, that the Federation of Islamic Student Societies has still in their guidelines explicitly, and it's still there, you can go on the website and read it for yourself, it still will say, maintain segregation between brothers and sisters, keeping interaction between them at a minimum. On the other hand, some of the responses that I received were actually quite shocking in the sense that the University of Arts of London actually said that, well, I think, students' unions, that is the students' union of that university, would take a sensitive, flexible and collaborative approach to student members that may prefer gender-segregated seating arrangements. So, you can, I personally interpret it in a way that's saying like, well, no, actually, gender segregation is still going on, it's still okay. And the University of London actually says, well, if a private booking event for an event would involve segregation on gender grounds, the conference office would request that the houris make it clear to their guests in advance that such segregation would be taking place. Well, if that is not endorsement of gender segregation, I don't know what it is. So if you just, in terms of conclusions, we have a highly publicized campaign. We had strong opposition to our campaign from Islamist groups, but also from student representatives. 6 months after the issuing of the HRC guidance, universities still have insufficient safeguards against gender segregation. Most do not risk assess, monitor, or prevent gender segregation, and even universities with verified instances of gender segregation fare hardly better than those that do not. And some universities still appear to be allowing gender segregation, and I would love to discuss these details in more detail with all of you in the Q&A session. Thank you.